Welcome to the S.J. Childs Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, thanks for joining the S.J. Childs Show. I'm so excited today. We were able to talk a little bit before we start recording, and just when you find your tribe, right? And now, as you guys are going to hear today, I'm going to be learning some new information, which I'm all about learning. I'm all about growing, educating yourself, educating your community, your neighbors, your family, and doing it with kindness and grace, and always meeting them at their level where they're at. Always remember to do that. So thank you so much for being here today. We are going to be talking to, and of course, your name right now says iPad, so I'm not going to mispronounce anything on the screen. I didn't want to do that. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us about what brought you here today, because this is going to be a really exciting conversation.
Well, hi, thanks for having me. Wow, what a great welcome. I am so excited about your journey and the way you look at, your family and your community. It's exciting. I'm Harry James O'Kelly, and I'm supporting the O'Kelly Lab. And I'm going to be talking about twice exceptional education and 2E kids basically today.
Yeah, fantastic. And before, obviously I reached out to her and asked her to be a guest on the show. But what we hadn't realized is how much parallel our lives are. And that's so exciting when you find that and you can collaborate. And, one thing I always love to have is the tier of support and someone in front of your, like a new person that's getting their, diagnosis, and someone to be able to reach out to say, I'm here if you need me, someone on the same level where you can say, hey, I have a 13-year-old. What is puberty? What in the heck is puberty happening? Right? And ask people that know, and the people like yourself who are a little bit further ahead in the journey, that we can lean on and say, what's next? What does this look like? What does this transition period look like? What can we expect? And obviously there's not one answer for everything for anything. So keep that in mind. But it's always nice to be able to make these connections and always keep learning to find out how we can support one another.
Amazing. I just think what you've created here is an amazing community, and I love that you have this lifeline. This it's just a platform where you're right. People can jump in at any point, whether they've just been diagnosed, they had their kids diagnosed, or they've been diagnosed,
yeah.
Or if they're further along the line and they've hit a bump in the road and they just need some advice, or just know that they're not alone. I think that is so important. Mm-hmm. For me, right now, where I'm at on the journey, I have 3 children that are twice exceptional. I have a son that just turned 18, which is crazy to me.
An adult, right? A human. You raised a human already.
Right. It's crazy to just think that we're here, because it seems like just yesterday he was 4 and he was diagnosed with autism, and we were like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. Yeah. What's going to happen to our family, and how are we going to survive this? And then he has twin sisters that are 16. Mm-hmm. And so they're all very different. Jordan is autistic and then also gifted. And Rachel is autistic and gifted. And then Macy, the other twin, is she's gifted, but she had some medical problems. She had a liver transplant. So she had a completely different journey with her development. Yeah. So I think having all 3, very close in age, it's just, I think there were years that were just a blur.
Yeah.
For a lot of us. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, thank goodness right now, the great thing is, Rachel was a regional center client when she was below 3, and then transitioned we're in California, so we have regional center services for those of you out there that are in California, and so we did have those services when she was very young, when she was first identified. And then we were pushed into the school system, and I've just recently gone back as they're starting to transition into what's going to happen after K through 12 land, and have just been approved. So we had an amazing, this is so great to celebrate, because finally, after all this time, we've just been approved, and I'm on a whole new journey of what that's going to be like for getting services for them for the rest of their life.
Fantastic. So important too. And, it really comes down to us being those advocates, finding out what steps we have to take and going through the motions, even though they can be long and painful, and the wait list can be phenomenal. I think the wait list for our DSPD wait list here is 18 years the last time I heard, or between 10 and 18 years, something insane like that. And so, yeah, it's really it's important to find these things out, and not everybody knows. No, some parents don't understand that those things are of need because they're at those early stages. So these are great tools and advice for just everyone that's going through that, especially for our California listeners. If you have questions about resources, definitely reach out, because there's a lot of people like Harry herself who can help us understand the kind of best places to reach out to, because you've been there, done that, right? The do's and don'ts. Sometimes those are the most important lessons we learn.
I think it's so important to just create that community. You're not alone.
Yeah.
I think that's what's, helped us to survive. And I mean, really survive and then thrive.
Yeah.
Because without, having resources or having other moms that you can reach out to, or dads, or families, or organizations, you're basically trying to take on the world by yourself. And that's not really it's not the best thing for your family. It's not the best thing for you mentally, like for your mental health and your self-care. And I think it's hard to, it's easy for me to say now, oh, I'm doing a little self-care for myself. But when you're in the thick of it, and you're in, the crisis of writing emails and fighting a school district, or it's so hard to just pull your mom head above water and really just try to get through the day. The Target runs, the everything that happens, making dinner, getting them to school, the stress of oh my gosh, if they get another tardy, they're going to be, it's just all of these stresses that seem so annoying and insignificant when you're just trying to survive. And so I think my advice, and of course it's just my advice, is don't try to do this alone. Yeah. There's a lot of organizations and people that you can reach out to that might be right on your block, even that could help you in some way, whether it's even taking in your trash can, or any little thing. Just don't try to do it all yourself. The more you can delegate, the more you can find support in all aspects of your life. Don't try to do this alone. We are not super moms.
Yeah.
And we're not meant to be warriors and moms and worriers all at the same time. And it just burns us out, and we can't really use our strengths and our abilities to the fullest if we're just so burnt out and just stretched so thin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to reach out and to always know that, and I hope that every therapist, doctor, and, speech pathologist, OT would be saying, there's no one person for, you need to find a team of people. You need to find a team for the summer, for summer camps, or, swim lessons or whatnot. And like you said, reach out to some local organizations. They might be closer than you think, and you might be able to get some really, personal resources right there close to home. So for some of our listeners that might not and don't probably have twice exceptional children, let's talk a little bit about what that looks like for you in your household, and how you guys came to kind of understand what that meant.
Well, I think my journey, yeah, I'm an older parent, and I think my journey started, um, I had a kid that had a problem, like a medical problem. And so I was, I had I had my son, which I thought he was just normal. I thought he was just kind of hyper, like a boy, like most boys. And it wasn't until I had an occupational therapist actually come in my home to help me with my daughter through this medical, issue that she had. And her turned to me at one point when I was dealing with one kid, and she said, there's something going on with that other kid. And
Mm.
I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? He's just a boy.
Yeah.
I've got this problem with this other kid that just had surgery. That's a problem. And
Yeah.
she was like, no, that's not normal. Like the way he's acting, he's so impulsive. And so it really took a professional. I got really lucky that a professional was in my home
Yeah.
and she could help me, like, teach these kids how to share, teach them how to take turns. I just got really lucky and
Yeah.
identify for me, this is something he needs supports. He needs other things. And that started us on the journey. And then, because the first thing that popped up for us was his deficits from the lens that we were looking at him, like what's wrong with him, which is that deficit model. At that point, that's how we're as a family. We were looking at what he couldn't do, what's wrong with this kid, And it wasn't until we accommodated some of his deficits that we could really see his strengths. So was he always really bright? Yes. He was very verbal, very young. Did he have a lot of really unbelievable strengths? Yes, but when you have a twice exceptional child, they can mask those strengths with their deficits. And that's why they like to describe, like the strengths being yellow and the deficits being blue. And when you put those two primary colors together, you get green. And that's what these kids are. And they like to say, it just ain't easy being green, like Kermit the Frog. So we describe that. But when it's a very, being twice exceptional and dealing with this 2E or 3E or 4E kind of child, you're constantly, trying to just pull everything apart and figure it all out. But in the reality, it's a very complex system.
So complex. Yeah.
We are whole, people. We are not, what should the speech person be working on? What's the goal that the OT should be working on? And unfortunately, we take these holistic, complex outliers that really don't fit in with the gen ed kind of school model. And then we try to put them in an IEP situation where we're piecing everything apart and saying, does he need this? Does he need that? When we should be just looking at their complete wholeness and giving them what they need to do the best that they can in the environment, because it's all encompassing. If they have a sensory integration issue, if the lights are buzzing or too bright, that's going to throw them off to where they can't even be ready to learn. So, looking at these children in a more complex way is probably, a healthier way to look at them, and not try to piece it all apart. So in that respect, if you can put your kids in a strength-based education model, whether it's homeschooling or at one of the wonderful schools that are popping up that are strength-based, they're going to look at your child's strengths in this twice exceptional or 3 exceptional kiddo, and they're going to go with what the kid can do. And let's just think about that. If you're good at something, right, you're going to want to keep doing it, and you're going to feel good about going to school, right? Yes. But if you're constantly showing up someplace and they're making you go over and over something that you really have
Yeah.
difficulty with, are you going to want to learn? Are you going to want to keep going? Or is school going to be something that you just don't want to go anywhere near?
Mhm. Exactly. We have to listen to those and watch those responses carefully because I completely agree with that. I often liken DJ to a computer that he runs so many tabs at one time that sometimes the functions of the computer don't work properly. The sound doesn't work properly, the brightness can't work properly. These easy functions are used up by all of this information running at one time. And so it's interesting when we step back, but we also accommodate. I love the finding the strength based support for your child, and I completely agree, and hopefully teach that and agree with that. And I think that even comes down to connecting with your child. And you, one thing that I think is so important, that a lesson that we really learned, was our daughter really struggling. She has dyslexia and really struggling with math and multiplication. And how can we, because the kind of repetitive, um, memorize everything doesn't work the same way for her. And we can't expect it to. We can't expect her to learn all the same ways that we have, when we don't have the same challenges. And I realized that finding her strengths at the time, she was, 8, 7, 8, Minecraft. And she has a brilliant sense of like interior design and fashion and creating things and sewing and all of these amazing eyes for things. And she would create these beautiful buildings in Minecraft, and these intricate kitchens and living rooms. And I'd be like, whoa, I hope this kid decides our house someday because she's got taste. And I realized,
Well, you can, because you gave her a tool that she could access that.
yeah,
And I think that's what Minecraft does for so many
isn't that
kids.
true?
And,
Yeah.
my son started it when he turned, like, right the summer, I think after second grade or before second grade, it was right when Minecraft was coming out. And I remember all these other parents were like, oh, you can only limit the screen time to an hour. And I sat, like you said, it's relationships.
Yeah.
You want to really develop that relationship. You want to jump into your child's world. You
Yeah.
don't want them to feel alone. You want them to know that you
Yeah.
are right there with them. You're a coach.
Exactly.
You're not like beating them up, or
No.
you're cheering them on.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that it's like you said, the relationship is so key. And I was fortunate enough to have a class in floor time, and one of the main pillars of floor time is follow your child's lead.
Yeah.
And so you follow their lead, and then you jump into their world, and then you're basically looking at life through their lens,
Mhm.
and you're seeing a lot of different things. You're seeing where they're excelling. You're seeing where they're having trouble. And I love Minecraft. We have Minecraft parodies in our movie,
That's great.
because Minecraft was such a huge piece for our son connecting with the world.
Exactly. Once we started realizing we could build multiplication tables out of blocks, that started piecing everything together. And it was just that little thing that we needed to help her, empower her. And that's really what it is that you're connecting and you're showing them, oh, you're so good at this. And, DJ is a photo or photographic memory, like I said, but he has a brain music. He just started playing the piano on his own, teaching himself all this music. He's 8 years old, taking music composition theory. And it's fascinating. And when you start, saying, oh my gosh, what can we do? Can we help? Well, I'd like to get a drum set. I'd like to get a keyboard. I'd like to get these. Let's do it. Let's, whether, and of course, appropriately enough, ask Santa, or let's wait, until your birthday, or, but there's rewarding and like accepting your kids for who they are, where they're at. It is like the sun is just shining down on them, the spotlights on them, whatever you want to call it. in all this, they're able to shine and really like bring out the best of themselves. And that's what we want to do as parents is cultivate children to be the best of themselves.
Right. And
Yeah.
I love what you're talking about as far as it's not just acknowledging like what you're seeing, it's valuing
Mm.
that in them and having that mindset. I talk about like having a get to mindset. Like I get to figure out how I'm going to buy that drum set for him. I get to, take him to music classes because he's supposed to be there,
Yeah.
and not kind of looking at it like, I have to take you to dance, or I have to, I think so much for the parent part of it is we really need to embrace whatever these kids are excelling in and are interested in and support them in that journey of being successful, especially if they have this asynchronicity where they might be really great at one thing and then they can't tie their shoes. Like my son did not tie his shoes until he was 14, and we had to teach him because he was going to college. He went from having a full-time aide, all of these amazing services that we were fighting for through elementary school because of this autistic, diagnosis, and me being that, advocating, I've got to get what he needs kind of mom. And then finally, we went through 4 different elementary schools. We finally got to a tech school where he was supported. He had dysgraphia, so he wasn't able to express himself in the written form, which was really hard for being in a gen ed environment.
Yeah.
They weren't seeing his true potential. He wasn't accessing the curriculum. So once we kind of got the computer and he was expressing himself and being able to organize his thoughts and things like that, we thought, oh, he's finally able to learn. We had no idea that he had a math mind. We had no idea that he was even able to do that until we went to like a totally different school and
Yeah.
looked at things differently. So even at that point when we thought we had this great breakthrough and we were giving him what he needed, once he got to a strength-based model school, he was able to then radically accelerate, which means when you jump over 4 grades or more and go into college by 14. So he went from a general education setting where he was struggling until 5th grade. 6th, 7th, and 8th, he was in a different model school where he just completely bloomed and took off. And then because we exposed him to what else he could possibly have in his life, meaning you could go right to college and not have to do high school. There are schools like that. He was able to then set a goal and realize he could unschool, or school himself outside of school with a computer, which a lot of these kids that have gifted TUI can do. And as a parent, if no one tells you that, how would you even know that? We had no idea what he was capable of, and so you have to kind of have that open mind. You have to kind of make your kid number one, not the school, like not listen to what the school is sometimes telling you as far as what their potential is.
Yeah.
And just kind of keep exposing yourself as a parent. You have to educate. So I actually I like to look at what Dr. Lynn Lim talks about in her Nest parenting perspective. And in the Nest parenting, there's something called the parent trifecta. And I love the parent trifecta. And so the pillars of the parent trifecta are parent support, where you're supporting your child; parent education, where you're doing things like listening to this podcast or going to conferences or joining support groups or going to conferences with your family or by yourself to educate yourself on everything. And then mentorship for your kid, because hey, like my kid's a physicist, I'm a filmmaker. I had to find a mentor for him. I had to find a mentor for him pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so I love that, parent trifecta through the Nest, NEST, lens. And it's it's really helped me. So I started with the floor time model. I've done all these other things like social thinking. I've had all this other wonderful, you know, I don't know, theories, background, all kinds of other stuff that I've used as a parent in educating myself, to try to scaffold for my kids. And now I'm really enjoying the Nest parenting lens, which is so wonderful, by Dr. Lynn Lim. Also, we're connected to an organization called SENG, SENG. And SENG is kind of we kind of partner with them. They're our nonprofit partner. So as the O'Kelly Lab, I'm just a parent. I have a grassroots kind of like not even an organization, just a grassroots effort where I'm out there talking about, all kinds of different resources. I go to different fairs. Now I'm working with another organization called Happy, HAAPE, which is all about employment for autistic individuals. So I'm out there doing all these other things, but I'm just a family that wanted to make a difference. I'm not even a nonprofit. So I'm championing these other organizations and other resources. And so that's what you can do. If you're sitting there and you're thinking, how can I make a difference? Just start talking about what's working for you.
Absolutely. No, and you and I are so much alike. I can't tell you, we'd be on here for way too long if I told you all the projects I had my hands in, right? It's been so exciting. And tell us about you mentioned you're a filmmaker, and kind of let's talk about the film and how that progressed and kind of how everybody felt about it.
Thanks for asking. I have a little postcard here.
Yes.
The film is O'Kelly Legends 2E Behind the Scenes. And it started with an idea. It started with a kid in fourth grade who wanted to get out of doing homework. It didn't make sense to him. He was really struggling. He was reading books that were 5 grades ahead. We had no idea. And the teacher was asking him to do a synopsis every week of a book that he read. And he couldn't figure out how to make those two things make sense. So I caught him. He was cheating. He was writing the back of a book that he read in first grade. It's Harold and the Purple Crayon. And I see him and he's in fourth grade and he's reading Harry Potter. And I see him scratching and copying the back of Harold and the Purple Crayon. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing my homework." And I said, "You're doing your homework? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, I have to write a synopsis of a book I read." And I go, "Well, that's not what this teacher, I don't think that's what this teacher is thinking." So I wound up talking to the teacher and he said, "Well, I hate this homework. I'll do anything. I'd really rather write my own book than do this homework." And so it gave me that idea. And I thought, all right, if you really mean that, I'm going to ask your teacher. And so I asked her and she said, "I don't care what he does. I just want him to be engaged." She loved him. She was a great teacher.
Yeah.
She was really one of those superstar teachers that just loved kids that that you want every kid to have.
You want her for the rest of their life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he loved her. And so it's relationship. Like you said, they have this great relationship. And she said, "Let him write his book." And so she didn't think he would really do it. But because he felt empowered and he thought he was getting out of something, he started writing, and he was writing 1,500 words a week. It was crazy what he was doing. And so that as a parent, I see, wow, there's something to this. When they're allowed to do what they want to do, they're more motivated. So it's just a journey for both of us. He's learning and I'm learning, and we're just growing. And so that one little idea of getting out of homework turned into a book of short stories that he wound up putting online 2 years later. We forgot about it. And then when he got into 8th grade, he met this man who had this organization, SENG, and then the man basically passed away very quickly. And Jordan wanted to do something for that organization. So he took his book and he made it into a monologue show. And we performed it for a fundraiser. And as we were starting to put it all together, Jordan has dysgraphia. He wanted to change the book from a book of stories to a book of monologues. So, we didn't know how to do all the different things. We needed to bring in a producer. We needed to bring in a director. We needed to bring in a casting director. And so in doing that, we called up all our friends and people we knew and reached out to experts. And as we were bringing everyone together to kind of make this event happen, something clicked and I said, we should shoot this. We should film it. And that's how it became this documentary. So we filmed
Amazing.
everything. And then we wound up cutting it together during COVID. It, we miraculously, we finished it. I couldn't even believe we pulled it together because I don't know what, it's like, I'm driving them just, like, how am I going to have time to do this? But we put it out there and it got accepted into 20 different festivals.
Oh, congratulations.
It won half of them.
Yay!
It was crazy. And now it's gotten distribution. Amazing. And it's on 4 different platforms. It's crazy. So this little idea of I don't want to do homework has turned into this documentary, and it just keeps growing.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations. And
thank you.
Fantastic story. I'm excited to look into it and to watch it. And and if
anyone's listening, please watch it.
Yeah.
It's on Tubi, it's on Amazon Prime, it's on Infobase, and there's another channel that's coming out. They just bought it, but I don't know when it's going to be out. But please watch it. Please, reach out to us. Please give us your feedback. We would love to know what you think. And if you're interested in having it for a fundraiser for something that you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think that's such a great idea and such a wonderful way to get the information out to people, because you can really learn so much from real experiences, from that anecdotal storytelling, from hearing other people's, ups and downs and seeing it, especially like this type of documentary setting where I'm sure that there's ups and downs, and it really is great to be able to normalize that this is life and this is what our life looks like. And, we haven't had our visitor come in yet to say hello, but, I'm always expecting that he might. And I think that it's so beautiful to have others like you in this journey that have compassion and insight and foresight for others, for the what our children really are capable of. And rather than setting them up and setting yourself up for doom and gloom and heartache and headaches and fighting all the battles, choose your battles, give in to your child's needs, to your child's wants, and realize that oftentimes, that what some people see as that need for attention is often the want of connection that they're looking for. Take time to nurture that so that you can, grow and make these kids have wonderful futures. 100%.
I love that you brought up expectations. And thank you for that. Thank you for having me, the O'Kelly Lab on and validating, what we're about and what we're working on. And it is a growing, changing kind of thing. But I'm glad that you talked about that expectation piece. I think that's just, don't try to if you can just, as a mom, stop expecting. And the timeline too. The timeline, like time is really an illusion.
So true.
Some kids can figure stuff out in 2 seconds. Some kids take 2 years. Yeah. And if we don't put that extra pressure on these kids, like it'll happen when it's gonna happen. And when it happens, just celebrate it. Yeah. Embrace these kids the way they are and celebrate it. They're never gonna be who you think they are or who you want them to be or whatever. Yeah. They can be far greater is all I can say. Far greater. And if you just take your expectation glasses off and just look at them and go, I really love you. Loving them is very important too. I had a doctor early on and I was complaining. I was in there and it was a neurologist appointment and I drove to Sacramento and he was this huge neurologist and it was like a big deal that we went to him. And I was just listing off all these things that were wrong with my kid. And I was going on and on and on. And he stopped me and he goes, "Do you love him? Do you love him?" And I looked at him like, "What are you, crazy? I just drove 5 hours. Of course I love him." And he just said, "Well, you need to love him to really make this work." And I realized that by picking him apart and by looking at all the things he couldn't do, really wasn't loving him.
That's so
I wasn't
inspiring.
really loving him.
Yeah.
And that really, in that doctor's office, it really changed me to just kind of look at what do I love about him? Because I'm just complaining. And a lot of times in those early doctor's appointments, we're doing it right in front of our kids. They're sitting right there and we're just going on and on and on about, well, he can't tie his shoes. Well, he can't do this. He can't do that. And so what are they hearing? Are they hearing a mom that thinks the world of them? Or are they hearing a mom that's trying to fix them?
Yeah, exactly. Such beautiful, beautiful advice. And I honor you for being so vulnerable in talking about that. Definitely. And it's so true because our kids, no matter whether they are not yet verbal, they, hearing,
They hear it.
yes, and they know, they understand. They, even if they aren't, I would say, even if they're deaf, they can read body language, they understand, they feel energy, they know how you're feeling, and
Right.
be so gentle with yourself and with them, with your energies. That is so true. I'm getting all emotional.
Well, we are, it's like, just like when you try not to react when something
Yeah.
happens, like I remember, like one of my kids, my daughter, she doesn't feel pain. It's not funny because I shouldn't laugh, but she doesn't feel pain appropriately. So we had a situation after a birthday party where we were going down an escalator. Her foot got stuck in the escalator.
Oh,
It
heaven.
broke all of her toes, and she didn't say a word. And luckily, her twin sister heard it and told me, and I yanked her foot out before. I mean, she could have been completely what they call degloved. It was horrifying. It was a horrifying thing. And so, I'd go through that trauma of, oh my gosh, like you're panicked. It was me and these two little girls, and I yank her foot out, and she's not reacting the way you should be reacting if you broke all your toes. She's just looking at me like, "Mom, what's happening?"
In a daze. Yeah.
And so it's really hard for you to, like as a parent, to not go, "What the heck?" And completely freak out,
Yeah. Oh,
and
amen. Been there for
what
a
the
broken
heck?
leg.
What
I
the heck?
know.
Just completely become like
Yes.
unglued because it's not anything you've experienced, and so you have to kind of constantly be keeping yourself in check
So
so that
true.
you don't freak out. And in her case, it's like if I was calm, she was calm. So
Yeah.
if I freaked out, she would look at me and go like, "Am I supposed to be freaking out? Should I be doing something?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Don't you know what you should be doing?" It's
Yeah,
like such a
right.
crazy situation. And like like I'm explaining it to you, you totally get it. I could tell you've been there, done that. But when you explain this to someone else who hasn't had that kind of kid, they look at you like you're from another planet.
Yeah. Like, how could you have even gotten through this? And you're like, "That's Tuesday. Thank you very much."
Yeah, exactly. That was this morning. That was
Exactly.
this morning. So I think it's so important that you have your community and you have these, the moms where you could say, how do I do the repair? I lost it. I like didn't, I was started crying and it freaked her out. How do I do the repair to say it wasn't you? I love you. And, mommy's going to try to do better next time, or I should have been there for you, or, it wasn't your fault that you forgot your lunch. It was my fault, and I got to be a better. And so they know that they're not alone. It's not just them. And there's just so much of that, and that was a lot of what we did with the O'Kelly Lab. We just really kind of came together, looked at ourselves and how, our differences, what our differences were, what our strengths were, started showing the power in collaborating, not competing with each other.
Love that.
And I think that's where we have to go for the rest of our lives.
Agreed.
I'm working on something new now because now I'm at a point where my kids are getting older. They're moving on, they're starting to like do, they already do their own advocacy, but they're starting to do their own different things. And I'm working on, what's next for me as a mom,
Yeah.
where my kids are going to be going off. So I'm focusing on my 2E trauma mama stuff, which is more
Okay.
storytelling.
I love that. Oh, I am look forward to staying in touch with you. And I think that we can really support each other. And yeah, really now I know, like I said, when I get to that 15, 16s, I'll be calling. I might even be calling next week to see what happens in 13 and a half. So
I hope
yeah,
so. I hope
yeah,
so.
definitely. Before
And
we
and
go, oh, go
I
ahead.
I think that's so great. And I love what you're doing, and I hope that your whole community is doing that.
Oh yeah, and if you're not on our Facebook, are you on Facebook often? Do you have that Facebook and everything? Okay. I do have a group that if I haven't invited you already, I'll get you included in as well. And it started like kind of the same thing about, 2 years ago, and we had a tragedy in our community. It wasn't a fatal tragedy, but it was still a tragedy. And I said to my husband, like, these boys are only 2 years apart. How could we be safe in our community when these kinds of things are happening? This is terrifying. I need a louder voice. What do I need to do? And out of that kind of came, the podcast, but also opening up this group on Facebook, the Autism Advocate Support Group, that has blossomed into this just fantastic community of professionals and advocates themselves and parents and just so many people that want to bring so much value to one another. And it's never kind of like you said earlier, we never dim ourselves by lighting someone else's flame. We don't go out, our flames don't go out. So always remember that. I'd love to support everyone in that community. It's such a beautiful place. And yeah, I'm excited to see, how what happens with the film and how it grows for you guys. Where is a website we can go to find out all of this great information?
We can go to our website, theokellylab.com, and you can also reach out to us if through Facebook or Instagram. We're all, and I'm starting to do TikTok, which is crazy
Yay.
because I'm, starting to promote the 2E Trauma Mama brand.
Yes, I love
And
that.
that's really more about the trauma that comes, to parents of special needs and gifted kids that are fighting the school systems, or just,
That is
just
just not talked
everybody.
about enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
love
it's just
that.
the hit that we take, mentally, basically, our
Oh,
families and us as moms or parents. So 2E Trauma Mama is pretty much out there. And I'm starting to, like, we're going to do our first show right around Mother's Day.
woohoo.
Yeah. And it's going to be a fundraiser for, SANG, SENG. And we're going to do that here in California, in LA. And so, I'll
Wonderful.
definitely like promote it more when we're closer to it, but we're just pulling that all together, and it's just storytelling.
Wonderful.
So 2E Trauma Mama is basically like a cross between education and storytelling.
Wonderful.
And it's kind of motivational speaking, but in story. And we all
Yeah.
tell stories, and we've all heard stories from this IEP, or that
Mm.
PTA meeting that went badly,
Isn't that the truth?
or
Oh, too much of the truth. Yeah. Oh,
so
heavens.
look for us. Like I said, we have Instagram, we have a TikTok. You can look under Harry James O'Kelly. You can look under the O'Kelly Lab, and you'll find us. We also have some things that we've created, like a behavior chart
Oh,
that's
nice.
out there for free. If you are looking for an all positive behavior chart, my son invented
Love
it when he was
that.
5. And we have something called Mime as Therapy that you can find on our website that might help for nonverbal learning.
Wonderful.
So we have all kinds of little crazy things that we're creating, and the film.
Oh,
So watch the
fantastic.
film.
Yes, I can't wait to watch the film. I'm so excited. And I'll be getting in touch with you as soon as my husband, maybe we'll do that this evening when we have some time to sit down together. I'm so excited to do that. Well, it's
Yeah, and
been such an
I'd love to know
honor.
what your kids think of it too, because we talk about Minecraft, and the kids in
Okay.
it are 10 to 14. So I think you're the market. I want to know what your kids think.
Perfect.
That's
Excellent.
great.
Our son probably he doesn't have the cognitive functions to sit through a movie very often or any kind of show with us, but our daughter
He
will.
can he can come in and out. There is
Exactly.
no
No
expectation.
expectations,
If he
right?
likes any of it, we're thrilled. And it does talk a
Love
lot
it.
about acting. So if you know any kiddos that are interested in acting and auditioning and things like that, there's a lot to learn there for that.
Oh, I love that. Well, I look forward to I'm so glad we got to make this connection, number one. Thank you so much. And I honor you in your journey, and looking forward to 15, 16, 18. Oh my heavens, with my kids someday. I raised a 23-year-old. I'd never told you that. So I understand the wow, I already have a human out there, an adult running around the world. She's my stepdaughter. So yeah. Whole another episode on that one. No, just joking.
Yeah,
But it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today and get to know you. And I'm really looking forward to staying in touch
I
and
know.
doing
I'm
that.
so excited to meet you.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
congratulations on all the wonderful things you're doing and the lives that you're changing and the families that you're healing. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. It's such an honor, and it's just my passion and my heart is all about just, bringing great education value and love and kindness, inclusion for all, right? Hip hip hooray.
Yes.
Thank
Keep
you
up the great
so
work.
much. Thank you.